Happy Friday. Jason is blowing over Chicago, I think. Actually, that's not even a funny joke anymore with all of our airline issues. Jason is attempting to land in Chicago and on his way home from the Middle East. He left Abu Dhabi at, I don't know, some number of hours ago and was hoping to join O'Hare. But it looks like wind is messing with him a little bit. So maybe he'll pop in at the end, maybe not. Keep saying hi in the chat. Thanks for joining, everyone. Garfield jokes. Yeah. I wish he was here. He'll tell us about his trip to the Middle East. It's always interesting visiting other parts of the world, just from a perspective. What people are talking about, how we're absorbing the world around us, even what news and information we consume, how people are looking at the US and vice versa, all of that thing. So I know he had a really incredible trip and was able to share with the Corporate Research Forum what's happening in the world of transformation, HR, the world of work from our perspective. So can't wait to hear about that. We've got an amazing guest lined up for you. We'll get Juan on in a second. That was Juan's music choice, and it's such a good Friday vibe. Before we get going, of course, you know we have some business to take care of. The most important question you can ask another person: are you green, yellow, or red? I love everybody already saying hi in the chat. Let us know how you're doing today. Green, yellow, or red? I love it. Green, green, green. Juan is green. Perfect. Oh, we've got more than one Juan in here. John is green. Hi, Heidi. Oh, see, Jason's not here to say, how are you, Jess? So Heidi just took care of that. Thank you, Heidi. I'm green, I guess. Sometimes I say I'm like defiantly green because I just refuse not to be optimistic. I'm so frustrated with myself. I'm training for a race. Which means I work out almost every day. I try to intersperse some hot yoga, but then I do some higher intensity stuff too. And I knew I was on the edge of this. I went to class this morning and I tweaked my back. Dang it. I knew I was right on the edge and I probably should have taken a rest day. So if I look stiff or uncomfortable, I've got a lot of this stuff going on my back right now. Yes. Oh, thank you so much for everybody saying hi. I know, massage. I'm actually going to go get a little work done with one of the trainers right after this meetup. But I'm green. And I'm glad to see we've got mostly green and some yellow. I can't believe it's the last day of February. We're already 2 months in, you guys, into 2025. Absolutely bonkers. I hope everybody's year is going well so far. Let's just say that. The next thing we do is one big thing. OBT, Jason likes to call it. One big thing can be personal, professional, whatever you feel like sharing. Please tell us in the chat. One big thing from your week. I love celebrate. This is always my favorite thing. This is why I love having a partner in crime on these things, because while Jason's talking, I'm reading all of yours. It's literally my favorite thing to read what's going on with everybody in their lives. And I'm going to share my one big thing. Dorothy just called it out in the chat. I took Monday off this week. My kids had a school day off for just a staff development day. And I love that. Some lovely comments from posts on LinkedIn. See, I'm already getting distracted. Spoke at a huge conference this week and met for the first time my amazing boss. That's cool. Nicole got invited to be a contributor for Reworked. I love that. Yes, the Harriet Magic Hole. That's the ice hole that when Jason and I did a cold lake plunge a few years ago, we need to make that happen in March. I agree. An achievement for Aman, getting the award of Emerging HR Leader of the Year. Aman, that's amazing. I love it. Elisa or Alyssa, daughter-in-law came home Monday after 3 weeks in the ICU. Holy crap. Such an amazing blessing and miracle. Okay, that is worth celebrating. Holy cow. Okay, so I'll finish my story, and I'm actually going to share my screen and share a video with you guys. My one big thing, my kids had Monday off. I took Monday off. Two of my kids were in their winter production of Singing in the Rain, a musical they did at their middle school this winter. They did that whole like week long of performances, like 6 shows. They did that at the end of January. So it was like water under the bridge. But they took it upon themselves, a portion of the cast, like 20 of the cast members out of maybe 90, it was a pretty huge production, decided to go on a little mini tour and take Singing in the Rain, the musical, to 5 of our local senior living facilities and perform in these nursing homes. The kids had this idea, which is absolutely incredible. So I took the day off to drive them around. I was Uber mom for a day, and we visited 5 of these homes. And I honestly don't think these kids realized what an impact they would have. In our second home, there was a little gentleman sitting in the front row, and he could not stop smiling. He must have been there like a half hour early waiting for us to arrive. He was already front and center when we got there. We're getting set up and everything. And he was watching the kids get ready, and he was smiling and talking to everybody like permagrin, like the smile never left his face before we had even done anything. And when we started singing, when the kids started performing the songs, his toes were tapping, he was moving in his seat, and he was singing along. The funny thing is, I don't think these kids realized this music and this musical was of their time. And so when you're performing for this generation in particular, they had no idea that Gene Kelly is near and dear to their hearts, and they would know all of so the fact that everybody was singing along with him all day was very funny to them. I'm going to see if I can, I'm just going to take it upon myself here. I'm not going to share the video. JC, I don't think I'll be good at this. Maybe we can share it at the end. It says I'll screw up my computer sound. Anyway, go to my LinkedIn feed. I posted a video about this. It was absolutely, you can watch the video. I shared a little recap of the day. It was the most heartwarming thing I've honestly, I've ever seen. The fact that these young people and these older people were creating such a powerful connection with each other. And I think it was the music. It was a couple of things. I think we could have been performing The Lion King for all they cared. But I think the music was part of the connection. I don't know. It was really, really beautiful. Yes, JC, if you want to, but I'll have to, she's messaging me. Let's get that ready for the end of the show. I'll take everybody out at the end of the show with that video recap, just so I don't delay Juan. But that's definitely my one big thing. The kids were crying by the end of the second performance. It was just, there were so many moments throughout the day. What a perfect way to take a day off. I don't think I even knew I needed that as much as I needed that. It was absolutely incredible. Oh, yes, we'll get it ready. We will get it ready for the end. And I know everybody loves this Christmas tree. The funny thing is, that is the small Christmas tree. The big one is in the other room. And like my house just twinkles. I have a lot of big picture windows in my house, and it twinkles from the outside when people walk by. I laugh at the dog walkers going by. They must think it is absolutely bonkers in here because it is still full on Christmas. All right, so here we go. Let's all send Jason some good travel mojo and tell him how much we missed him. But let's get to our guest. I would love to bring Juan Herrera on. Oh, thank you, Bryce. Meeting 249. In 2 weeks, we celebrate our 5-year anniversary together, you guys. We've been doing this show live every single Friday for almost 5 years now. And apparently this is our 249th meetup. Juan, you're here for number 249. Can you believe it?
Woohoo!
I love it. Well, thanks for joining today.
Excited to be here. Thanks for playing my my walk-on music. That was a song by Poncho Sanchez. It's called Besame Mama, and that is a household favorite at the Herrera house.
Oh, it's
We like to play Latin jazz when we do backyard barbecues. I thought it'd be kind of a cool intro.
I love it. I think it's almost impossible to listen to that music and not move your body. If I could move today. But it's just such good music. Feel good music for sure. And where in the world are you joining from? Where are you located?
Yeah, I'm in a little town called Morgan Hill for folks that know California. It's a city that borders San Jose, so call it the suburb of Silicon Valley.
Yes, perfect. Well, I'm so happy you're here. You've been scheduled for a little while, and I've really been anxious for this conversation. I've seen a couple of posts about this actually, the idea of AI as a coder and what's happening to the world of software. And are we really going to use apps the same way anymore? Are they going to be built the same way? Are we going to interact with them the same way? Do we even need UX anymore? Like, such an interesting conversation to talk about the impact of AI on the world of software as we've known it to date. And it's super interesting to have this conversation with you and with HackerRank in particular, because this is your world. I mean, you live this world, sort of understanding the skills required for software development and sort of where all of this is going. So maybe we can start for those who aren't familiar with HackerRank with who you are as an organization and what your perspective is on AI and coding and software, sort of where you come into this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And see if we can try to bridge it from developer to all roles. I think the
Yeah.
developer role is pretty interesting. It's one talent category, but I think there's a lot of parallels that you might see where maybe it's going to happen first for the developer, but it's probably going to happen for all roles. And so we're the developer skills company. We're not the cooking skills company, the marketing skills company. We are all about software developers and technical roles. We actually invented the online coding assessment as a way
Mm.
to evaluate candidates prior to taking an interview. Back in the old days, a developer candidate would get a question like, "Hey, how many golf balls can you stick in a 747?" And people were serious; they wanted an answer. And
Mm.
it's not just archaic. And so we made it more real world. We give candidates challenges, real coding challenges, and they write code. And then we rank it and we score it and we give a good hiring signal to the hiring team. Since then, we've done a bunch of other things. But what's interesting is being in this world of software developers, we have a lot of reach. We see about 3 million candidates every year that come through our
Wow.
system. And Jess, they're in the system for like anywhere from 15 minutes to 3, 4 hours. And so like we get a real deep look at
Mm.
people. And uh, and we have this big community of developers, about 26 million developers. So every year we survey them. And not surprisingly, AI was like just the number one topic. And so little factoid, when we ran our last survey, which was almost a year ago, we're refreshing it right now. 3/4 of the world's software developer population used AI every day in their job.
Huh.
Isn't that amazing? It went from zero like 3 years ago to now 3/4 of the world population. Here's another interesting factoid: 20% of them use it even when their company says they shouldn't use it.
Yeah, well, that was where that's exactly where I was going to go. Are they hacking their own jobs and finding their own tools, or are they innovating inside their companies to say, I think there's a better way to do this?
It's just the utility. It's just the utility is so immediate and impactful. It would be like saying run a lap around a track with one leg. It is just so much value in AI tools for software developers today. You're probably handicapped if you're not using it.
Hmm.
And the weird thing is it's actually changing the definition of the person. Like literally, when you think about software development, like they used to call them programmers. And really software development, programming is just one piece of it. But now these AI tools can do the programming. And so now I don't have to sit there and hack on the keyboard as much as I used to. So what are the other things that I need to do that are higher level value? Because now I have a tool that can kind of do the bricklaying. And I'm
Hmm.
an architect. Now I can focus on making sure the bricks are organized better, have better design, work with my customer, the constituents better. it is actually up-leveling that role of a software developer and it turning them to what we call an orchestrator of AI agents, where they're
Yes.
now like they got little workers working for them, doing different things.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's very exciting and it's making people way more productive, but it is changing the way that people look at the role.
Okay, a million questions. So when it comes to programming and coding, I'm in the camp, firmly believe AI should do first pass work for almost everything. I can't come up with that many examples where AI couldn't do a pretty decent first pass. So all of the CEOs who are expecting AI to transform their business, one of the ways that, and I don't know if this is that transformative, it's just productivity and efficiency gains. If you can get to first draft or more, get sort of like the heavy human work out of the way and get to the real work of a thing faster, that's an efficiency gain. I don't know if that's that transformative. There are other ways AI will truly transform business operations and drive innovation and do other things we're not doing today. But this gets us to like real work faster, I feel like. So from a coding perspective or programming, software development, if it's doing first pass at code, and I think you guys share this stat that it's about 70% decent on coding. So there's
Yep.
still a lot of human element required on code testing and regression testing and quality control and that kind of thing. How does this change how does this change the skills of everybody in this field? Is AI the new junior coder, junior programmer, and we're all like mid to senior? And so how do people enter the field? How do you progress in this field? How does this change the skills that humans still require to do this, oversee this work, I would say?
Yeah. That's a great question. Let me can I try an analogy on you?
Yeah.
So uh, people might know him. It's Sully Sullenberger.
Yes.
He's the Alaska Airlines pilot who landed the 737 on the Hudson River.
Hmm.
So Sully's got a degree in aeronautical engineering. He's flown planes his whole life. He's an amazing pilot. Truth of the matter is 90% of the flight is done on autopilot. Like Sully doesn't actually have to touch rudders and things like that. But when the plane hit the bird, autopilot didn't know how to do that. And all of a sudden, all those years of training came in. And,
Hmm.
and by the way, if you're on that plane, you want to make sure Sully has all those years of training. So the fact that he doesn't have to steer the plane 90% of the time doesn't mean the skills aren't still necessary. And so it's the same thing in this world. So in software development, you might have AI agents doing a lot of the work for you so that you can focus on other things. But at the end of the day, you still got to check its work. And so you have to have the skill. You have to have the skill to be able to check the work. And yes, it'll do 70% of the work. Oh, by the way, that's first pass. You run it
Hmm.
through again, it's like 95%. And then it gets really good. But you have to know how to run it through again. You have to know how to check it. And so another analogy is like an editor used to be a good writer, but now he sits at the editor desk and edits other people's writing. It's kind of that same concept. So it's a higher level role. It's pretty transformative. And so we now have customers like, okay, great. I want to know how good they can code, but now I want to know how good they can review code, how good
Hmm.
they can annotate it, how good they can run test cases, other higher level skills. And so the focus on how well they code is shifted to another set of skills. And in fact, you could probably see that happening in other professions. For example, I have a marketing team that works for me, and we use one AI agent for doing videos. We use another one for photographs. We use another one for writing blogs. And
Mm.
again, the work gets done, but they still need to be kind of good at writing blogs and make sure it's not putting out silly stuff.
Yeah. I agree. And Ellie, I do agree. I like that you gently submit that people making their resumes should first enter their information, their career history, their achievements, their milestones, everything that they would include, and then ask for editing help. Uh, yeah, so that's kind of reversing it a little bit. I mean, the idea is that only we know, like we have we can discern better than a machine for now, perhaps. We can discern, what are you actually looking for? What should this look like, sound like, and sort of shape it accordingly. But still, AI acting as an idea partner, as a content generator, as a thought partner, as even a fellow strategist. Test this hypothesis with me. The idea is that it should be everybody's assistant, knowing how to use it, how to train whatever we're working within. When we do workshops like this, I mean, we're still at a pretty fundamental level of understanding generally for everybody how to work with these models and use them as true assistants. Even things like introducing yourself to your AI, whatever tool you like to use, introduce yourself, give it context, train it in terms of the output you like to see. Give this to me as if I'm an industry analyst. Give this to me as if I'm a storyteller. This is for a deck. I need this as an infographic. Fact check yourself. So to that end, can we teach AI to do its own code review and to do its own regression testing, or
Yeah,
still it's not quite there?
we can. We are. It's
Yeah.
happening. It's absolutely happening. So, these language model, I mean, these large foundation models, they've consumed massive amounts of data and they're very generalistic right now. But what you're seeing is a whole, and the foundation models for those that are aware, companies like OpenAI, um, Meta Llama, Claude,
Mm.
these big foundation models, and these things have consumed massive amounts of data, and they're good at answering a lot of generalist things, and they're getting pretty good at specific things. But you're starting to see as folks train for more specific tasks. And so a more specific task would be like a code review. A more specific task would be a more authentic blog. And so it's really just a matter of training. And the more they train, the more they consume, the accuracy moves from 70% to 73% to 75%. It's funny, there's a lot of companies out there that run benchmarks, and the whole job of a benchmark is to see how well these models perform against tasks. And they're seriously getting better every day.
So I'm going to share a headline. You might have seen it already. I'm already getting. Oh, I didn't optimize my audio, JC. I'm going to do this anyway. Let's see. Have we seen this? AI agents speaking gibberlink to each other. Highly advanced AI robot speaks several languages. Not only that, when two agents talk to each other, they can recognize each other as agents, and they can say, oh, no need for this natural language processing and everything that is required for an agent to speak to an agent. Let's just speak agent language, gibberlink. That eliminates all of the translation and NLP required for agents to talk to other agents. Is this not crazy? Have you seen this?
No, I haven't. There's a lot of things I haven't seen. I get things run across my desk every day. It's just some new. I wouldn't even know how to parse that out right now. I wouldn't even know what agent gibberlink is. I'm sure there's a whole research paper on it.
Yes, that's the thing I think I find interesting to think about. By the time we see a headline, like somebody's working on something in a lab right now that we have no idea. So the stuff we're talking about and finding headline worthy today is literally yesterday's news to the people developing this stuff. They're already 2, 3 generations ahead of this. And so we say we have no idea where it's all going. Somebody does. Somebody's building it right now. It's kind of nuts. It's a lot to keep up with. So what are you finding I love that you have as much skills data about let's just say technical roles to be broad. The skills data you have on technical roles is super fascinating to me. What are the trends? Where do you see some of that going in terms of how to even assess and define skills in this category anymore?
No, it's pretty interesting. We have a platform for evaluating skills, and the taxonomy is pretty classic. It's a set of job families with a set of roles with a set of capabilities. and a set of skills that are associated with every role. So for example, if you're looking for a software engineer, let's say a front end engineer, the family, the roles, the capabilities and skills are already pre-articulated. And for a front end engineer, maybe you need to know problem solving. Maybe you need to know how to use React or Angular, some type of UI type of development tool. And and those are the skills you would typically look for. And we would typically run an assessment where we give somebody a challenge and say, hey, here's a challenge. Go build a mini search app. And they would take those skills and they'd apply them to building a search app. Well, the tricky thing these days is in the hiring process is people can get assistance from AI tools and it's unauthorized. It's like, I'm not saying you can use AI, but if you use AI, is it your skill or is it AI skill? And so customers are very concerned about that because what
Mm-hmm.
they want to see is they want to see candidates who can who have the skills like Sully has to land a plane when there's not AI there. So they want to see you without AI, but then they also want to see you with AI. And so right now in this space, people are looking for those two variations of skills. Do you have the classic computer science skills? And if you are allowed to use AI, what does that look like? And so it presents some challenges. One, we need to make sure that there's integrity in that process, that if people are using unauthorized tools, they don't use those. And so we need to give a signal to the hiring team about that. And then number two, um, there are some new skills emerging. So for example, one of the ways you write an AI-based application is you do this thing called prompt engineering, which is a special method by which you use AI and embed it into your products. And so prompt engineering is a brand new skill. So now we need to test for that. Another skill that's become really important is, and we talked about this earlier, is like all of a sudden I need to be really good at code annotation. And here's a funny little thing. English language has become more important because now I'm not just writing code, I'm not writing Python, I'm actually providing commentary on, hey, this is how this should work. And so I'm now editing in the code. And now all of a sudden people are saying, hey, I need to make sure people have good English language skills because that's the language that we use to annotate the code. So new skills are emerging. And it's
Mm-hmm.
and it's very fascinating. But the thing around integrity though, that is a big challenge right now, particularly when people, and if you think about it pre-hire, if all you have is a resume and people are maybe taking a pre-assessment, can you trust that it's the person doing it, or
Right.
is it AI? And that's a real concern for customers right now.
Bob is asking in the chat to confirm. So you have modified your assessments to be able to detect AI assistance? Is
Oh
that,
yeah.
yeah,
We use AI to detect AI.
yeah.
Hilarious, right? How ironic is that? So we use AI to detect AI, and we also use AI to do automated proctoring. So yeah, so we will tell the candidate, hey, don't use AI, and if you do, we'll tell you that we see you using it, and then there'll be another assessment where we go, okay, hey, use AI. We want to see how well you do at that as well.
I feel like this is a moment in time conversation. I don't think we'll be talking like this in 20 years. This comes up for me a lot um, in when I'm having a talent conversation. It was probably within the last year, I was presenting a workshop, an Art of the Possible workshop for a talent acquisition leadership team, wondering where and how to infuse AI in some of their candidate experience tooling, how recruiters should be using to pre-qualify, assess, handle selection, even presentation of candidates to hiring managers. Like where do these tools belong, for good or for bad, or what do we have to be careful of? And somebody in the workshop said, wait a minute, you mean job seekers are using AI too? I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, yes, and if they're really smart, they're customizing everything to do with their application, their how they present themselves to you there's no reason it couldn't be fully customized to your culture, your EVP, the job description that you presented. Like the tools are so good, and they can use AI to coach them, to prep them for the interview, give me a mock interview as if I'm
Mhm.
applying to a job at HackerRank. This is their culture. This is what they said. they're looking for. This is what I know about them. Mock interview me. And like, of course, all of this technology exists for job seekers too. Is it fair for them to use it? Why not? If it
Yeah.
helps present themselves in the best possible light and sort of like remove the chuff, right? From the that we normally, it usually takes a little bit of process and kind of getting to the heart of the matter to figure out, wait a minute, what's like the real you and the real me? And let's have that conversation. There's so much, you know, hiding things or like to get to like the heart of that conversation. My answer was, why would they not? And why would you not want them to? And so even in this conversation, okay, I'll tell one more quick story. When probably I guess it's been about 2 years ago now, my daughter had to write an essay. They had read a book in class. She was, I think, an 8th grader or 9th grader at the time. They read a book. They created a story outline, answering a few interesting questions about what they had read. And then she had to write some like, it was sort of a building piece over the quarter. And so she was to this final piece of homework, which was the big grand summary of what she thought about everything they had done and read and discussed together so far. And she said, Mom, I don't even know where to start. Like, I read it, I get all of this. We watched the movie together. Like, why do I have to write this to prove that I know what we're talking about? I don't even know where to start. And I said, ask ChatGPT to create a writing outline for you. Mm-hmm. Get you over that writer's block. She had done all the work. She knew the content. She literally just had that writer's block, that first draft block. And she said, really? I can do that? Isn't that cheating? And I said, you're not cheating the actual homework. You're getting yourself to a starting, like you're just getting out of the blocks. You're giving yourself a place to start. She did, she used it, she presented it, and the teacher gave it back to her and said, that's too good. I don't think you did it. I think you used something. Very interesting. And this was pretty new at the time. So schools hadn't developed a policy yet about what they expected kids to. I mean, if you're going to say that, then can I use Grammarly to suggest grammar corrections on it when I'm done? I mean, like, where do you draw the line? It feels like a slippery slope to me. And I think that's where a lot of this conversation comes into play in terms of using it at work. When is it cheating or not? Or when is it actually irresponsible not to use a tool that would improve the time it gets you to a quality output? Like, that's the opposite of that question in my mind. Tools that can help you produce better output faster sounds like a pretty responsible thing to do if I'm managing a workforce and I expect productivity. I know it's a little bit of a rant, but I think that's the conundrum we find ourselves in right now. So even assessing your own skills, do you want my skills with, like, do you want to know how I do math without a calculator? Or do you want to know that I can get to the right answer faster using the tools that I have at my fingertips? Isn't that really the question?
It might be the hardest question to answer, because I think people have a different set of opinions and point of views on that. And I think it's sorting itself out. I think uh, let me just kind of spin a little yarn here.
Yes.
Let's take
I
it to
love
a
that we're philosophizing about this, by the way, because I think this is the adoption gap. People don't know if they should. They don't know what to use because their company isn't telling them. The employers don't know. Like, this is literally the philosophical conundrum we're having. It's not, do we know how to use tools? Are we consumer savvy, tech savvy? Like, yes, this is the gap we have to get over, in my mind. So yes, please philosophize.
well, my personal philosophy is I think people should use it unless they're told not to use it. Um, and you should only tell people not to use it for a very good reason, because you're going to probably be stunting value. And so, but think about this. So just think about like a journey of a person moving through their hiring process. And so I'm a person, I want to find a job, and I go to like HackRank.com and I need to spruce up my resume. They can get an AI resume builder to build them a resume. And so So with a few prompts, they put information in there, and the AI tool will build it, but they'll get to edit it, modify it, so they own the output. And then they'll submit that AI, they'll submit that resume to a company, and that company will use AI to investigate the resume. That
Mm-hmm.
company may then send an assessment to that candidate and say, hey, here, take an assessment. Let's see how good your skills are. And the assessment might say, for this part of the assessment, don't use AI. And for this part of the assessment, do use AI. And so you get a skill signal, you send it back to the hiring team, and the hiring team will then use AI to look at the skill signal. And then they say, okay, great, I want to talk to the candidate. So they invite the candidate for an interview. And before the interview, that candidate goes back to HackRank and does a mock interview where an AI agent does a simulated interview of what a hiring manager is going to ask them to get them ready.
Yes.
And then that person then talks to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager and that developer might actually do like a collaboration of technology on screen. And on screen, you might actually let the candidate use AI so that
Mm-hmm.
the manager can see how they use AI to solve these problems. The manager collects all the feedback, they meet a bunch of people, they collate the data, and they make a hiring decision. And so through that process, there was a lot of use of AI. And through that process, it felt like the process was better. And
Mm-hmm.
and there was not an ethical conundrum in any of that because people were using it when the intention was right. They said you
Yeah.
can use it here, you can't use it here. Everybody benefited from that process. That is what our customers are saying they would like to see happen.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important, like, obviously the output has to be good and accurate. It has to be better than what we could have done on our own, not just faster. Like, I want to get us past the doing the same stuff faster and calling that a win. I don't know that it's a win to do the same thing faster if we were doing stupid, pointless, mindless stuff. But like, should we still be doing things or doing things the same way? But if it's a necessary workflow, just something that, can be benefited by automation, yes, obviously get that stuff out of the way so we can get to the real order of work that needs to be done here. Like I mean, I love Ellie's example of a resume. Everybody's using it for job descriptions now. Sigh. I could go on and on about job descriptions. If it gets us to there's a lot of reasons to structure your jobs and have well organized job profiles and eliminate redundancies and get them graded properly. Like, there's a lot of reasons to have good inventory when it comes to your jobs. So I'm not saying job descriptions aren't necessary. They're probably still necessary for now, just so we have some inventory to track and organize so people can be assigned to work properly. That's the vehicle we're using for today. But should we be using job descriptions forever? No, probably not. Eventually they're going to go away. And how is AI going to help us move into understanding work differently?
Yeah.
That's the more interesting question. Like, I can't wait for us to start asking better questions about what AI can do. Can AI actually help us get from 1,000 job profiles, lots of messiness and disorganization and redundancy in there, and maybe tell us what 10 key profiles, that might be an exaggeration, we have in our organization, and then map people in a more intelligent way based on their skills and the tasks they perform, not resumes and work, like, I think we're using the wrong matching tools today
Yeah.
altogether. And that's where AI moves us in a different direction altogether. Is it getting us to a job description in 5 seconds instead of 15 minutes? Sure. Yes, but that's not the most exciting part. And you can't have any of these conversations without talking about bias. Are we getting to a good quality, higher quality output using these tools? Does it introduce bias that wouldn't otherwise be there, or can it actually correct bias that's inherent in all of these processes? How do you guys talk about that?
Yeah, it's core to what we do because we are tied to the hiring process so tightly. all of our customers are very interested in that. So when we think about the hiring process, particularly if we're doing assessments, because assessments it could be a touchy subject. There's three things that we think about. We think about fairness. Is the question being presented, is it fair? Will it yield the same type of results across gender, across ethnicity, across all the dimensions that people worry about bias on? So is it fair? The second, is it valid? Is it a valid measure of performance? Like how many golf balls fit in a 747? It's probably not a valid measure of performance for how well you can write code. And
Right.
so fairness, validity, and then reliability. If I replace that question with another question, I give one candidate one question, give another candidate another question. Are they reliably interchangeable? Will they yield the same results? And so we spend a lot of time doing that. In fact, we have a team of PhD IO psychologists where their job is to look at all this stuff and make sure it passes those three tests. AI does change the game because AI does have bias in it. In fact, there's a famous story of one of the Google models where it had some political bias where, for example, it decided to, heck, even right now with Google, they'll give you a route that has um, the most fuel efficient. Even if you don't want to be fuel efficient, that would be the first route. That's an example of bias. And so these models can have bias in them, but the models can also be trained to not have bias. But
Right.
those are new frontiers like that. Those are things that are just starting to be talked about right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing for people to understand. They're trainable models. It's up to us to design them, to train them, and they rely on high quality data to
Mhm.
train on. Um, and so there's a lot we can do to control that output. What are you
Hey,
seeing? So go ahead.
I was going to say, I love the topic you're having on the other one where you're talking about, there's this concept of getting rid of the job description and just kind of
Yes.
decomposing down to the essential skills and tasks, and like,
Yeah.
which would allow for mobility, people that can move around. You don't get typecast into a
Right.
job description. And I do think AI can help that, but just to kind of turn the conversation, get philosophical, then don't we still have the human barriers? Like, does AI, isn't there like a sociological or psychological conundrum there that people just don't wrap their brain around that? And does AI overcome that? Or do we still have to overcome the human barrier to that?
To that
To be,
mobility conversation.
yeah, to being willing to do away with job descriptions and
Oh,
move to more of a skills-based
absolutely.
hierarchy.
Absolutely. The number one barrier to transformation is for the tech. Can tech design something different, sustain a different experience at scale? The number one barrier is always people. It's bringing people, it's the change leadership of behaving differently, agreeing to act differently. And it's really our view of talent in an organization. If you believe, most organizations, most CEOs say their people are their number one asset. There's no way to make that true, to literally make them your highest performing asset unless you unlock them. Unlock them and activate them, better deploy them in a more agile, flexible way where you can pivot the right people to the right work at any given moment in time. No organization would say they excel at that. So it's kind of like you can't really say people are your number one asset unless you've done the cultural and structural work to be able to deploy them when, where, and how needed. Most organizations, so I think it was Bryce made a joke about headcount earlier in the chat. Most organizations couldn't even give you an accurate headcount if asked in the moment, because it's like too hard to like get that, what is your headcount today? Where do people sit in your organization by function, by geo, like how are they organized? We have a hard enough getting that data together in an accurate, timely way, let alone now what are the skills of your people? We have no idea what skills we have or we're missing in our workforces at any given, and then take that to the next layer, the next click down. Now, would you know how to pull together a team in a moment's notice to do this highly important work over here tomorrow if you had to? We're just not set up that way. We're too clumsy. We put too many processes and we hoard our own talent. Over
Mhm.
here, my high performing talent is mine, you can't have them. And so we risk losing them to, external competitors rather than our internal competitors. Like, let them move around the business or go to the work where the work needs to be done. That's a mindset shift. That's a huge mindset shift. But if you're going to think about talent differently, you need to think about deploying and moving them differently.
I couldn't agree with you more. Change is like a strong gravity. It keeps people, and we're going to see a lot of wonderful stuff of AI. But one of the struggles I see is companies just getting their brain around the change. I
Yeah.
gave an example, like it's very easy to say the hiring process is broken. That's been said for years. AI's kind of really broke it good though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like AI's made it extra broken. Like in our assessment world, can you trust assessments? When you think about resumes, when you think about job, AI is making, we might need to rethink that whole process entirely.
Hmm.
And so if you to leverage AI for good.
Yeah.
And if we're not willing to get rid of our old biases, if we have this status quo bias where we kind of do things the same way that we've always done it, we may not see all the benefits that we think we can get out of it.
Hmm. Ekta has a great question. I'm glad you're here, Ekta, in the chat. Are you seeing a bigger shift or a shift towards skills-based hiring based on, so I mean, the world of work is changing so fast. Jobs are changing overnight. The stat I use all the time, there's 1 billion jobs in the world. 1/3 of them will be significantly changed by technology by 2030. 2030, not that far out. And like 22% of them, I think is the stat that I've seen from the World Economic Forum, will be significantly changed, which means they'll go away. They'll be made obsolete. So jobs are changing overnight. The half-life of skills seems like it's shrinking by the day. And I think there's a lot of tailwinds behind this push towards skills. It just seems more flexible. It seems like a more flexible, agile way to move people to work.
Mhm.
That's what we're seeing anyway at Mercer, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, we agree. Our ethos is skills over pedigree. So we are a skills company
Hmm.
at heart. I mean, to answer Ekta's question, if you're going to work with HackerRank, you do believe in skills-based hiring. And we might have it easier than others because the skills that we do hiring around are probably the least controversial because they're very hard skills.
Hmm.
And so if you have a software developer, having them write some code and evaluating the code is a pretty hard skill. It doesn't have a lot of the same controversial aspects of maybe a behavioral or a cognitive type of skill type of thing. And so people that come to us are companies who believe that they need to do skills-based hiring on technical skills. And so the answer is yes. And then they start going to further places. I gave you an example. There's a very, very large, iconic company that we work with, one of the biggest tech companies in the world. And they're like, we love using you for technical hiring. Now we want to apply a computational thinking model to our other employees. And so the skill that they're looking for is computational thinking because they think that an employee that knows how to break down problems into smaller pieces and create subtasks is an
Mm.
efficient employee for certain types of roles. And so we've created a specific skill category for computational thinking, which actually extends outside of technical roles. And so that's an example of this very, very big iconic company leaning into skills. And they look at that skill as a transferable skill across job categories, that it's one of those things they'd like to just see in other roles. And so, yeah, we only see companies that really are skills based. It's all the ones that aren't coming to a company like HackRank that I think they probably um, have an opportunity to think about what their skills based hiring strategy is. And the cool
Yeah.
thing is the skills-based hiring strategy, it segues right into a mobility and upskilling strategy as well. So if you have a good architecture around skills for hiring, it's the same architecture that helps that person grow within your organization. It has a direct synergy with the entire employee lifecycle.
Mhm. That's the other thing I think. I mean, remember these large language models are large. The thing they're good at is handling a lot of data. And when you handle a lot of data well, you can suss out insights and get predictive analytics faster than you could if you're manually manipulating and working with data. That's the huge benefit of this. And so to your point about understanding skills better, something like, gosh, I think somebody with computational abilities might be better because you can play out that scenario and test your hypothesis a lot faster, not just having the insight. We think there's something here, but then sort of testing it out. So do people with computational skills to perform better in these types of roles? Did that play out? Was that true? I think, you know, we keep having the conversation around talent shortages and skills shortages. One way to widen and make your talent pools more flexible is by identifying and understanding the less obvious skills that we don't understand might actually make a candidate viable who we would not have otherwise considered viable. You can't talk about skills without talking about validation. Everybody's like, oh, how do you validate it? How do you self-validate? But then how do you get third-party validation? Yes, validation. But I think, again, don't lose the exciting part about identifying hidden, invisible, like stuff you would have missed. And then, like, yes, get the validation, but play that out and say, wow, did they actually make a better analyst because they had these
Yep.
skills and we never looked for those before?
You know, we have a team. You're so right. You're so right, Jess. And so like, and you said this earlier. So it's not about the job description. It's about how the work gets done.
Yeah,
And what's funny is there are people that we have in our company, these IO psychologists. Like the origin of that role is like they could do things like a time motion study, like how long does it take you to put a lug nut on a wheel at an assembly plant? And so imagine doing a job study where you're looking at what actually the work that needs to be done. So step out of the job description. What is the work that needs to be done? And what are the skills that are needed to do that work? And now you're no longer a job description, you're a description of the work to be done. And
right.
then that's what you look for. You look for those skills, and then you are a skills-based organization. The trick is we need some standardization because everybody's defining that job to be done differently. And one of the
Mhm.
values that we bring is, at least for software roles, we've already done all that work. So don't go do the job analysis anymore. We've done all that work, but that work needs to be done for other skill categories as well. And if you can do that and you can standardize, then it gets really easy for people to adopt. Because right now, a lot of it is a lot of custom job architecture.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Job architecture. Talk about something that needs to be made dynamic, like a living, breathing organism. And it needs,
Sounds
uh,
scary, doesn't it? The
it
word job
does,
architecture sounds big and scary.
it does. What other questions do you guys have for Juan? This has been a fascinating conversation. Uh, Yeah, there's still some banter in the chat about when and how to use AI appropriately and when is it a knockout versus an actual value add. I think the workforce is going down one road with two branches. Use AI, don't use AI. I mean, that's the net of it. And I don't know that we have much choice here, but I also don't think I don't we're fighting it a little bit more than we're fighting it for good reasons. So it needs to be trustworthy. We need to understand the risks associated and have a way as an organization to mitigate and understand those risks. I understand all of the protections we're putting around this. The advice that we give a lot for Mercer is to start with education, safe experimentation, give people the guardrail tools. And I honestly think if we all did a little bit more show and tell in terms of, I tried this, I got this outcome. Have you seen this tool? Have we tried it over here? I think we just need some innovation centers. We need to hack our own jobs. We need to figure out what the gains are that can be had. And then sort of, put the right governance and controls around those things, but we have to get past this analysis paralysis. I'm
We
not
got to
saying
move
there isn't
faster.
risk. I totally get all of that, but there's a way to do this and kind of get unstuck.
Well, if we don't move faster, it's gonna do it for us because this thing's changing every day. If we don't move faster, you remember those 20% that are using it even when they're told not to? It's
Yes.
just gonna happen. So we better get going.
I mean, I was today years old when I learned that there's a language called gibberlink that only agents speak to each other. So apparently I don't have to adopt it for it to happen. It's just going to happen. And that's the world I'm going to find myself living in. Will you tell us a little bit about your AI day coming up?
Yeah, so for those that are interested, I'll move to the side here. March 12th. We tried to do it on, we're a bunch of engineers here at HackRank, and so we're a little geeky. So Pi Day's March is
Oh,
3/14,
yes.
but it's on a Friday. We don't think we'll get a good audience on a
Yeah.
Friday. So we moved it to 3/12. And we're bringing on the CEO of GitHub, the CEO of Perplexity,
Wow.
and we're doing a
Perplexity is my favorite tool. That's one of
oh,
my
super
favorites.
cool. It's
Yeah.
very cool. And we're going to have a bunch of engineering and HR professionals talking about what's on the minds of great developer talent. Like what are they struggling with when they think about their job and what they do? And then how can talent teams get these really amazing people to join their organization versus others? And so
Mhm.
AI Day is about that. It's about tech talent and AI. We're going to launch a slew of new AI products to help hiring teams find good developers. And we're going to launch some new AI products to help developers showcase the best version of themselves to hiring companies.
Oh, I love it. I love the work you guys are doing in this space. It's a pretty exciting time to be doing the jobs that we're all doing, regardless of what your job is. Everything changed. Everything, we get to ask more interesting questions and solve problems differently than we did before, which is super exciting. Juan, thank you so much for being with us today. This was fascinating.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
And I promised everybody this video. JC, do you think we can play it out? If nothing else, I can find it in my own feed. Oh, perfect. Somebody asked for your LinkedIn contact details. Yes, please connect. Please follow HackerRank and follow Juan for all of the work they're doing. And let me see. I'm just going to pull up the video on my own feed. I know you guys got to run. We're at the top of the hour. Can't even find it on my own profile. And I hope everybody has an amazing weekend and Friday. Okay, here it is. Ah, I want to go back. Take me back. Juan, thank you again. Thank you, all of you beautiful people. Have an amazing rest of your day and weekend, and we will see you next week. Thanks, Juan.